Hi friends, it's Becky and I wanted to share some jewelry designs. Just some earrings that I've made with the Kraftika Czech Exclusive bead box for August of 2025. This is the one where I had some green and some red, but mostly we had leaves and things to, remind us of that transition from the green verdant summer to the warm glowy fall. So we've got some green beads, we've got some red beads, we've got some leaves. I'm really feeling some fall vibes right now. And we're going to start with really easy designs. Some of my favorite and easiest ways to make some earrings is just stacking some beads on a head pin. It's a super easy way to get started if you haven't ever done any sort of handmade earrings before. Super easy way to start. And then we're going to take that same concept where we've made our little loop on one end of our wire from our head pins, and we're just going to make loops on two ends and then attach a charm to the bottom for this one with that sweet Monstera charm that came in that box. And then for this one we're going to make a dangle using a head pin just like we did with this, and then another link just like we did with this to connect these together using these beads. And then we're going to go a little bit, a little more sort of intermediate level with this one. We'll make a little link, and then we'll just do a little special something with our loop at the bottom. We'll make it a little bit bigger so we can add some dangles with these drops. Materials that I'm going to be using, we've got some head pins, we've got some 20 gauge wire, and a 20 gauge is what I'm going to be using for most of these. And I've got some 26 gauge wire that I'm going to be using for these drops. And we've got some of the beads that we're going over. I've got ear wires for each of them. I'll talk about each of the beads when I start making them. But for the tools, I've got some tools of the trade, basically chain nose pliers, flush cutters for cutting wire, and some round nose pliers for making my loops. Alright, so let's get started with our easy guys. I am going to zoom in just a little bit and also move over so that we are not confusing the camera too much with some extraneous things. And we can concentrate for the most part on what we're doing for these earrings. So again, we've got an earring that is beads stacked on a head pin. I've got this fun fire polish bead up here. These jerks make great spacers, and these special beads, this type of design is a really great way to highlight a special bead, something fun and pretty like these coin beads that we had in here. If you want to see some of the other beads that came in that box, I'll link my unboxing in the description below. So I'm just going to take my head pin and just start stacking them on here. We're going to put those beads right there onto the bottom. Put my drook. Drook is what they call a round bead, by the way. That one's having some trouble going on the head pin. Let's swap that out. Now I know these fit on this head pin before because I made the first one, but I also tested these to make sure that they would fit. It's usually a good idea to, especially smaller beads, make sure that the hole is big enough for it to fit on the head pin that you're using. And I think I might actually have to swap out this head pin for another one because that is just not working for these guys. This can happen. Don't be alarmed. Just make sure this one's going to work before I keep going. Oh yes, that one's just fine. So, add extras of those. We can put our gold jerk on. Oop, maybe. If I can find the hole. There we go. And this. And now the next part is going to be to bend this wire over so I can make a simple loop. This wire is fairly stiff, so it's going to be pretty difficult to bend it with my fingers, so I'm going to use my chain nose pliers for this. What you're going to want to do is go ahead and rest the bottom jaw of your chain nose pliers gently against the bead. Just rest it, don't press it, while you support the beads in your fingers. And then just rest the other end of your pliers a little further up on there on the other side, like that. And then close your pliers. You don't have to twist or anything like that, but that'll make a little bend right there. And now we're going to need to make a loop. I usually like to measure from the bend about 1 centimeter. And this is a pretty short head pin relatively, so I'm not going to need to cut much off to get that 1 centimeter. Sorry there. 1 centimeter there. I do know from experience though, when I'm holding the bead, that this part of my finger measures about 1 centimeter. So I usually leave the measuring tool on the side of my mat and use my finger as my measuring. There's not much wire here to hold on to, so a little trick that I do is to kind of angle this towards my bead mat so that when I snip it, it goes flying towards the bead mat instead of, you know, pinging off the wall or something. So now that that's snipped, I could have probably done it without cutting that, but it's good to measure that. I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I've got this about 1/3 of the way down my barrel from the pointy end. I'm just going to roll my wire up until a loop forms. Straighten that loop out a little bit more. And I can attach my ear wire. Now I pre-made these ear wires. You can use store-bought ear wires. I like to make my own. And I do have a tutorial for how to make ear wires. I'll link that in the description below. But there we go, earring set number 1. Alright, let's move over a little bit and give these guys a try. Alright, so for this one I'm using this Monstera charm, 2 of these tiny drooks, and this olive bead. I really love these olive beads. They are super pretty. But for this I'm going to be doing some simple loops on about this is about a 3-inch length of the 20 gauge wire. And so I'm going to start with a simple loop on one end of this wire. I'm going to go ahead and hold that in my round nose pliers and then bend the wire around until it touches the other end, like that. And then I'm going to put this other jaw of the pliers against the wire right below where it touches and just bend it back a little bit like that. And that's going to give me, bend it a little bit more, a centered loop, something that's not pointing in one direction versus the other. I also like to give my loops that I make myself on my wire a little smush with the thick side of my chain nose pliers, because it helps work harden it so that it remains a loop. Now this is essentially an eye pin, and if you don't have homemade eye pins, store-bought is fine. But now I'm going to stack some of these beads on here, starting with a drook and my long olive bead and another drook. Now I need to make another loop up here on the top. So I'm going to support all of these beads with my finger, holding onto the top and the bottom. Take my pliers. I could bend this over with my finger because this wire is malleable enough for that, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that bend just like I did before. Measure my 1 centimeter. And this one, when I snip it, this bit is long enough for me to hold on to so it doesn't go flying. So I don't have to tip that in to my bead mat. And we're just going to roll this up for a simple loop. Like that. And I want my loops to be parallel to each other. And how you determine if it's parallel to each other is if, when you look at it from top down, if both of the pliers holding onto your loops are all matched up. So I'm just going to rotate this while I've got hold of it. And that's going to turn my loop around so that they're parallel. So that when I'm looking at it like this, I see the circle on both sides, and if I turn it to the side, for both of them it will disappear into a line. Alright, so for this now let's go ahead and open up one of these loops so that I can attach it to my charm over here. And to open the loops, you just hold one end of it near where it's got the open end and twist it. You can attach your charm and twist that back closed. And then attach my ear wire. And there we have earring number 2. Alright, so let's combine that with our next earring project. Let's get these guys all out here. Alright, so I've got my head pin. I've got 3 of these droogs. I've got a 3.5 inch, well, this one's 3.5 inch, but you could do just 3 inches of 20 gauge wire because we're going to make a little eye pin with that. But I'm going to take my little leaf bead here first. And I'm going to first put a droog on my head pin, so it's just hanging out down there at the bottom. Put my leaf bead on with the point down. And now I need to make a loop up here at the top, a simple loop. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing your loops is that I am going to have to take into account the shape of this bead. I'm going to bend away from me this way across the kind of the narrowest, dippy downiest part of this. It can sometimes be a little more awkward to get to. That's okay. And now I've got my, let's measure my 1 centimeter here. Hold on to that so it doesn't go anywhere. And then roll up my loop. And you could just do this as an earring. Put an ear wire on this part and have a sweet and simple little leaf as the earring. But instead I'm going to use it as a dangle, and then we're going to have this etched drop that has the two-tone colors. That's going to be part of this. There. So let's make another eye pin out of this wire here. I'm gonna go ahead and roll this up. And then break the neck. That's something a lot of people like to call it, is breaking the neck. It feels a little violent to me. It's just giving a little bendy bend. Maybe we're not breaking the neck. Maybe we're just adjusting it like a chiropractor. And then we'll do one bead, the drop, and another of these small round beads. And for this one, I think I had my loops perpendicular to each other. Okay, so we'll adjust that after I have made my second loop. Do a little bend, make a little snip, roll up tonight. There we go. So now let's see if these are perpendicular. To see if they're perpendicular, you want to hold it and see if they make a little cross or X shape, then they're perpendicular. Alright, now I'm going to take my loop here, and I could also use this loop here to attach it. It's one of the fun things about using nothing but simple loops is you can use either loop when you're attaching things to each other. And then swing that open. And there we go. We've got earrings number 3. They are very fall flavored, I think. Very arboreal. Alright, now this one is much more complicated. But also, it's still fun. It's still going to be a fun one to put together. But hopefully it won't be too confusing. For this one, I have about a 4.5 inch length of 20 gauge wire that we're going to use for this bit here. And we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to be using another one of these maple leaves, but this time I've got it turned point up, which is kind of fun for me. Really fun part is going to be making these drops using these drops. They are side drilled drops. They're going to basically become the ends of some head pins. We're going to stack some more of these jerks on. So for that end, we've got some, is that 5 inches? Almost 5.5 inches lengths of 26 gauge wire, and I cut 3 of these. Now for each of them, it's going to be basically the same sort of method. I'm going to find the middle by bending both ends together. We don't have to do a sharp bend down here, just a little gentle bend, just a U shape, so that when I put the brio, this side drill drop, it can nestle right down there. Now I'm going to use my fingernails to pinch this wire together up here at the top. It's 26 gauge wire, so it's fairly easy for me to do with just my fingernails, but I am going to do a little extra pinch right here at the top, gently, with my pliers, just to bring both of the wires together closer to the top of this brio. And that's so that, I've got a little kink right up here, snip that off, so that I can put both ends of these wire through these jerks, and they will go all the way down to the brio and not be hanging up there like up here instead of down here. I want them to be right next to that. Now I'm going to start with 1 and put on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these small gold beads. There were another set of jerks that were multicolored, which would be really fun in this design, I think. I'm just going with the plain gold ones, but having some multicolor ones would also be really fun in this design, I think. If you were to copy me, which by the way you are more than welcome to. That's why I make tutorials, is so that folks can get inspired. And if that inspiration is, I want to make something exactly the same way you did, awesome. I'm happy to have you do that. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, these ones are hard to get on with both strands. There we go. Just trying to get that bead on there. Okay, so now that I've got 5, I'm going to need to make myself a wrapped loop. So to do that, I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I'm resting the bottom of my round nose pliers against that bead, and I've got this supported in my fingers so that it doesn't get bent, or doesn't bend very far. But I've got my top jaw against the wire up here in front, and the back jaw, or the bottom jaw, against the wire in back. I'm just going to squeeze it like I did with the other. This gives you a more rounded sort of a bend if you do it with the round nose pliers. But right here, about 1/3 of the way down, I'm going to push the wire up over the top of these pliers, open up the pliers a little bit while it's still there, and just swing them around so that that bottom jaw comes up to the top. I'm going to take the wire and bring it all the way around. Once, both of the wires at the same time, and twice. There we go. And it doesn't have to be a ton of wraps, just a little bit of it. Then I've got some excess wire here. I'm going to take my flush cutters and turn my flush side towards the wire in order to snip off my excess wire. That only did one of them. I think the tip of my wire cutters might need sharpening. There we go. So now I've got one drop that is 5 beads long, and I need to make 2 that are 3 beads long. I'm going to do that exactly the same way. It'll be a little bit faster for these ones because I'm not going to need to do as much explaining. That's alright. Just get that soft bend. Sometimes it helps to watch it happen again. Pinch. Pinch. And pinch. And 3 beads, not 5. 5 was a little excruciating to try and get on. That's okay. Alright, round nose pliers, and I'm making my drops before I do the other part because I'm going to be adding the drops while I make the other part. There's a little bit of wire there that's poking out. So I'm just going to use my chain nose pliers to tuck that in and keep it from being pokey. Or too pokey anyway. And one more. I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit so you can see the broader motions of my hands for this one, because we are pulled in real close for that one. But sometimes it helps to see the whole hand and not just the fingers when you're looking at things like that. That's just me trying to keep the wire straight-ish so that these beads don't get stopped by kinks. One. Like this little kink up here at the top. Two, that's much easier to get on. Three. Alright, now let's make a loop. Alright, now that I've got those three, let's go ahead and make this link. Don't need these on here anymore. And to do that, about 1/3 of the way down from here, I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and just hold on to this wire right here like this. And I'm going to bend this wire up and this wire up so that they're meeting like that. And then I'm going to bring them both together just as close as possible across my barrel, or across that jaw of my pliers. Alright, now I'm going to take that off of my pliers, and see right there, it makes a little triangle. On this shorter end, I'm going to take the pliers and I'm just going to bend it this way, but not very much, just a little bit, so that it's bent there. And then the longer one I'm going to bend so that it's kind of straight and centered over my triangle. Just a little bit more. There we go. Like that. Alright, so now I'm going to just kind of make a little bit of space there between both of those wires so that I can slide my drops on to my little clothes hanger thing that I made down here. I'm going to do the 3, the 5, and the 3 in that order, so that one of them is longer, right there in the middle. I'm going to close that up a little bit more. And I'm going to do a wrap right here. It's not going to be a lot of wrapping, it's just going to be a little wrap. You can use your fingers to do this wrapping, or use another pair of pliers to bend this wire around this long stem. And I'm just going to go once around, like that. Just once. I don't need more than that. I just want to make sure that these are not going anywhere. I'm going to just go ahead and snip off my excess wire. And if I've got a little pokey outy bit right there, use my pliers to just tuck that in a little bit. There we go. Now, pop my maple leaf right on there. And I'm not using any other beads next to my maple leaf. But I do need to make a loop up here at the top. And this is going to be a simple loop, just like the other ones that I made. Now I'm going to go ahead and bend this without using my pliers. I'm going to make sure that my wire down here and my maple leaf are all supported. And then just use my finger to bend that over the top. And measure out my 1 centimeter. Roll the sucker up. So we have a nice little loop up here at the top. And now I can put on my ear wire. And hopefully that one didn't feel like it was too complicated. I just like to add some extra fun into my earring makes sometimes. Sometimes I want the really easy ones, sometimes I want more complicated ones. Sometimes when I'm doing a bunch of them, there you go, our fall guys. And our, hold on, it's still summertime. Green and growing things. With our Monsteras and things like that. Alright, so there we go. 4 pairs of earrings with the Kraftika 2025 August Czech Exclusive subscription. Once more, I will put links in the description below to Kraftika if you want to check them out. I do have a coupon code that you can use. It will be in the description. And if you want to see what else was in the box, I will link my unboxing there. And until next time, my friends, happy beading.